All right. So, hello everyone. Good morning. Welcome to English 9. It is Monday, September 8th. All right. Today we are starting our module 1.03, Narrative Techniques and Structure, Narrative Arc and Central Idea, the Oasis, Africa. All right, so your warm-up question, have you ever been in a situation where you were so hot and tired that you couldn't continue on? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe you can relate to that situation. Maybe not. Have you ever been in a situation where you were so hot and tired that you couldn't continue on? Again, pull in yes or no. And there's no right or wrong answer. You either have been in that situation or you haven't. All right, I'm going to share our results here. A lot of you said yes. Some of you said no. So that's fine. If we look at when we look at our story today, we will see that the character, well, all the characters really in the story are in this situation where they are so hot and tired that they feel like they just can't continue on. And you can see there's a picture of a desert here. So that is the setting of our story. It does take place in a hot, dry desert. So you can imagine if you're traveling through a hot, dry desert, you might be in this situation, right? So where you're so hot and tired that you couldn't continue on. And that's the basic premise. That's the basic idea of what's going on in the story. All right. All right, we're going to do our wellness check. All right, so it is Microphone Monday. You can get on the mic to say hi at the beginning of class or bye at the end of class. So if you'd like to jump on the mic and just say hi or hello or hey, you can do that now, or you can do it at the end of class. No hi's or hellos yet? We will, lots of good mornings in chat. That's fine. You can say bye at the end of class if you want to jump on mic. All right, here's our calendar for this week. So today we are starting our Unit 1 Lesson 3. Tomorrow we're going to finish Lesson 3. Wednesday we have a half-day schedule. So synchronous in the morning, asynchronous in the afternoon. We're going to do our assignment preparation and expectations for the 1.13 Modify a Short Story. And then Thursday, sorry. Thursday, thank you. Thursday, we're going to start Lesson 4, and Friday, we're going to finish Lesson 4. Friday, we're going to take the 1.04 quiz, and that will be due that day as well. That quiz will be on Lessons 3 and 4 and will include questions on both stories, the Oasis Africa and the Interlopers. All righty. So our goals for today, 1.03 learning intentions. I will learn about narrative arc, which we already started doing last week, and success criteria. I can examine narrative arc in the Oasis Africa story. Here's our standards. All right, today's plan, and check out the Unit 1 help video if you haven't yet. That link is in Q&A under the help videos section. Module 1.03, our guided lesson for today, we're going to do our author and text background. We'll look at some story vocabulary. We'll read the story. Then we'll watch a video. We'll talk about, we'll do a text review and talk about key concepts. And then we'll do our class discussion. So in the online course, Module 1.03 is Narrative Techniques and Structure, Narrative Arc and Central Idea, the Oasis Africa. All right, so before you read, let's meet the author. The Oasis Africa was written by Ernest H. Griffin. Author Ernest H. Griffin was a captain in the British Royal Army Medical Corps during World War I. The Oasis Africa is set in the Saharan Desert. The narrative was published in a 1916 magazine called Made in the Trenches, a compilation of poems, stories, cartoons, and articles written by British soldiers fighting on the front line of the war. So this is a nonfiction narrative. That means it is a true story. Okay, it's a true story. It really happened. Real people, real places, real events. Okay, so the Saharan Desert really does exist. That's where the story takes place. Ernest H. Griffin, our author, really was the main character in this story. He really did go through this situation, and he really did have this experience. Okay. This did take place during World War I, and he was a soldier, the soldier in the British soldier in the story. So we have a picture there. The Oasis Africa by Ernest H. Griffin. What is it about? The story is set in the African desert during World War I. An oasis, a green and fertile area with a spring, would be a welcome discovery for soldiers facing such bleak conditions. What do you know? What countries were at war during World War I? Where did the battlefields extend in this World War? So they started in Europe. Okay, most of Europe was involved in World War I, but it did go into parts of Asia, it did go into parts of Africa, and it did extend all the way to the United States as well. So we got involved also. And Canada, I believe, as well. That was there. What can you predict? What significant conflicts might be faced by a group of soldiers in the desert? How might you respond in such a situation? Right, so think about weather conditions in the desert. It's hot, it's dry, sandy, right? Not very easy to travel through. Even if you're just visiting the desert on vacation or something like that, but imagine you're a soldier during war trying to travel during those weather conditions and carrying heavy equipment and supplies, and that makes it even more difficult, right? All right, so story vocabulary. Take a moment now just to read through this slide on your own, and then we'll look at some of these together. All right, so story vocabulary. The Oasis comes from a book called Made in the Trenches. The book includes short writings from soldiers during World War I. The Oasis is the story of a soldier and his companions who are lost in the desert. So we know that an oasis is a desert. A desert oasis is a place with water where plants can grow. The massive green foliage of the graceful palms. That's right from the story. In context, refers to the large leaves of the palm trees, which provide shade in the oasis. Then we have some words that you might not know the definitions of, like misery, crouched, kneeling, gulped, genuinely in distress. And we have a specific setting, a word that goes along with the settings, sirocco, a hot wind that makes the sand fly all around, causing a sandstorm. Yikes. All right, so let's read the story. I am going to share with you the link for the reading, and we're going to listen to it in Engagely. The textbook link is there on the board. I would share it with you in chat, but Engagely doesn't like this textbook link. So you'll have to copy and paste that from the board there. All right, this read aloud is 7 minutes long. So we'll take a look at that. Here we go.
Recording of The Oasis Africa from Made in the Trenches by Ernest H. Griffin. It can be found in your Explorations in Literature textbook starting on page 206. For 80 weary days we had crawled across the burning desert. In all directions stretched the wastes of the mighty Sahara. Sand, sand, and always sand. Hills of sand, valleys of sand, and paths of sand. Sand in the scanty food. Sand in the brackish water. Water that was drunk lukewarm from a clammy, loathsome water skin. Sand in one's mouth, nose, and eyes. Misery of hunger. Torture of thirst. Unending discomfort of swarming lice, footsore and weary, but ever before us the pointing finger of the Arab sheik and his ceaseless on. We had started the journey poorly equipped, and now, having lost 2 precious days on the way, it seemed likely that if we did not soon strike the oasis, the caravan would perish of thirst. Clutch tight your water skin on the desert, for there is no charity on the Sahara, and he that has no water shall not drink. One day, the dreaded sirocco had swept upon us. Wrapped in our flowing blankets, we had crouched low beside the kneeling camels while the fiery sandstorm passed over. Sweating in the heat, we had lost the whole day, dreading to be buried alive in the drifting sand. This danger past, we had lost another day making a wide detour to the east in order to avoid the fierce, tameless Tuaregs who were marauding in the district. That was the day when fear laid his hand upon us, when each of us felt the knife at his throat. But the sheik's skillful leading saved us, and taking the caravan through some deep sandy defiles, we passed the raiding party without being seen. Later we heard the Sheikh Abdullah had fallen upon the bandits, and the tale of his vengeance is still told in hushed whispers in all the bazaars of Tripolitania, from the secret city of the Senussi to the unveiled walls of Gadames the Mysterious. I was at the end of my tether, racked with fever and aching all over. The heavy, old-fashioned Mauser weighed me down, whilst a string of sores marked the place where the cartridge bandolier galled my shoulders. I was uneasy in my mind, too. The Arabs were clearly dejected at not having reached the oasis, and several had already commenced to feel the pangs of thirst. I fancied they looked at me with envious eye as I occasionally gulped down a mouthful of water from my skin. A well-struck blow and the water skin would be theirs. Besides, the infidel was known to carry money, a sum that campfire talk had inflated to large proportions. After a short halt under the blazing sun, the sheik again gave the order to advance. On, on! I struggled up, but my leaden feet almost refused to bear me. "Mohammed!" I called to my faithful Algerian. "I can do no more. I am done." "Courage, Effendi, courage!" he answered, looking genuinely distressed at my condition. "Still a little way, and we shall sight the oasis. Risk not our lives by lingering in this evil place." "Our lives, Mohammed?" I queried. The Arab drew himself up. "Does the Effendi think I would desert him in his hour of need? But God is good. Let us press on." I took a good drink and lurched forward. I shambled along with clouded brain, but every fibre of my body torn with pain and fatigue. On, on. Suddenly the sheik stopped and pointed to the south. The caravan halted, and every one prepared his arms. Matchlocks was primed, cartridges rammed home, and swords loosened in their sheaths. Was it at the Tuaregs again across our path? But Mohammed, the keen-eyed, shouted joyfully, "The oasis! The oasis! I see the palm trees!" The Arabs burst into a loud shout of "Thank God!" and with my glasses I could just pick out the tiny patch of green dancing in the hot air. In a short time we were on the fringe of one of the most delicious spots I had ever seen. The oasis was set in the sand of the desert like an emerald on a shield of gold. The massive green foliage of the graceful palms was delightfully welcome to eyes smarting and sore with the glare of the eternal sand. How delightful it was to sit in the shade of a moss-grown bank, while at one's feet a brook ran babbling, picking its way through the cultivated patches. There it splashed noisily into a clear, round pond, and what pleasure could the gods have given greater than the luxurious bath I enjoyed in it? Then the cool and shady tent and the banquet prepared by Mohammed, with the lavish presents the sheik of the place had sent to me. And above all was the sense of peace and safety, that here, at all events, one could lay down to rest without having to snatch up revolver and rifle to every noise. Now that the sun had set, look for a moment at the pageant or the heavens framed by the open end of the tent. Like a filmy scarf of silver, the Milky Way lay on the dusky bosom of the sky. The beauty of the night was jeweled with the brightest stars that charm the heart of man. Canopus, the great star of prehistoric Egypt, blazed white above the horizon. Sirius shone like a peerless diamond, and Aldebaran like a ruby. Slow and solemnly, the tail of the great bear swept round the pole, like the hand of a mighty timepiece, majestic enough to tell off the hours. of eternity. Lulled by the soft music of the brook and infinite content, I sank back on the soft carpets and was soon in a dreamless slumber.
All right, there we go. So the Oasis Africa. Thoughts and reactions. What did you think of the story? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you think it was interesting? Thoughts and reactions in the chat, on the mic, or with your react. A thumbs up there. Okay. So we're going to watch the videos from the online lesson, the 1.03 video. All right, here we go.
Narrative arcs. Fiction and nonfiction. Generally speaking, the narrative arc for a nonfiction narrative follows the same pattern as the arc for a work of fiction. Explore this video to learn more. Accessibility.
Hey, Lewis here. I just read a story about how people can always find ways to communicate, even if they speak different languages. Well, that was the central idea. What actually happened was... Okay, no spoilers. It was a non-fiction narrative, so it followed a narrative arc similar to a fictional story. Not sure what a narrative arc is? Let's use the non-fiction narrative, The Oasis, Africa, by Ernest H. Griffin to get a better understanding. To better understand a narrative, you can map its plot events on a narrative arc diagram. The story begins with the exposition. The setting is the Sahara, where a group has been traveling on foot for 8 days. World War I is famous for trench warfare, and this story's from a collection titled Made in the Trenches. Anyway, the group has very little food and water, so they need to reach an oasis soon. The action starts when they run into a dangerous Scirocco, or a hot, dusty wind. This is the complicating incident that establishes the main conflict. Clearly, the desert is a dangerous place. Getting to the oasis isn't going to be easy. The rising action builds on the man versus nature conflict with some fear-for-your-life situations. For example, the group barely escapes some ruthless Tuareg bandits and are forced to make a detour. The climax occurs when the sheik, who is leading the group, suddenly stops and everyone's afraid that the bandits found them after all. And the falling action begins when you learn why the sheik really stopped. The oasis is finally within sight. They rush to the oasis, and the resolution is that finally everyone can relax and enjoy themselves in comfort and safety. So, what is the central or main idea of this story? Let's examine details from the text for explicit and implicit evidence of the central idea. The setting described in the exposition is a driving force for the entire story. The narrator explicitly says that the lack of water in the desert is a serious problem, and the complicating incident shows that thirst isn't the only danger in the desert. You can infer that the time spent dealing with these setbacks makes the narrator's exhaustion and thirst even worse, in addition to the desert's vast size and the heat. Then, the man versus nature conflict is partly resolved with civilized comforts. Altogether, you can conclude that nature can be harsh and unforgiving. Analyzing the narrative arc of a nonfiction narrative can help you better understand the story. Explicit and implicit information in the text also can help you figure out the narrative's central idea. Now, I need a smoothie or something. That story sure made me thirsty.
All right, so in the video, they talk about the narrative arc or plot diagram of the story. So if we take a look, our exposition, a group of exhausted soldiers makes its way across the burning Saharan desert. The complicating incident, the soldiers lose 2 travel days because of a sandstorm and the Tuareg moderators. I don't know. Rising action, the weary and feverish soldiers follow their leader and travel on despite their sense that they can't. Climax, Sheik spots something in the distance. Thinking it may be opposition, the men haul out their weapons. Following action, which includes the resolution, the oasis appears in the distance and the men are saved by the fresh water. All right. So that brings us to our class discussion. I want you to answer this question first, and then if you want to, you can do a text, excuse me, text to self connection. Okay. So do you think it was a good idea to continue moving through the dangerous desert? Why or why not? Here's a map of the Saharan desert. You can see it goes all the way across the continent of Africa at the top here. So all the way from the western coast of Africa to the eastern coast of Africa. That's a really, really big desert. Okay, goes through across several countries. And it's very hot and it's very dry and it's all sand except for in the oasis. Okay. So do you think it was a good idea to continue moving through the dangerous desert? Maybe you think yes, explain why. Maybe you think no, explain why not. Do you think maybe they should have turned around and tried to go back? Or do you agree with just continuing moving on? Okay. Then if you'd like to, you can make your text to self connection. What would you have done in that situation? What would you have done in that situation? So think and discuss in chat or on the mic. Share your thoughts. If you are still typing, you can continue to do that. Let's see what we have so far. Someone said, I think it was a bad idea to continue moving through the dangerous desert because they could have gotten hurt or worse, died. Okay. Someone else said, I think it was dangerous because of the severe heat. I probably wouldn't have continued out there even with decent supplies. It's a bit too risky for my liking. Okay. All right. Good. Any other comments or thoughts on this topic? All right. So, I don't know. So they were soldiers in a war, right? So they have their orders and they kind of have to follow orders. They don't really have much of a choice. So if their orders were get to this place, XYZ place, then they didn't really have much of a choice other than just to continue moving on. However, what would I have done in this situation? I probably would not have continued going on. I probably would have turned around, gone back, gotten more supplies, and rested, and then tried to go tried to go back the next day or the day after that, right? So but that's me. Again, I'm not a soldier in World War I following orders, so maybe they didn't have that choice, right? So it's an interesting story, and the fact that it is a true story, it really happened, right? Real people, real places, real events. I think it makes it a little bit more interesting. All right. Any questions on the story or anything we went over today? Questions? All right. If you have questions, you can put those in chat. Success criteria, how do we do? I can examine narrative arc in the Oasis Africa story. So we did that. It is Microphone Monday, so if you'd like to say bye on the mic, you can do that. Today's tasks and homework in lesson 1.03. Please finish reading the story if needed. You can review it again if you want to. All right. Have a great day. We're going to end a little bit early today. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.